Hi guys! Welcome to week 3 of our virtual mythology classes. I hope you're all doing well, you're safe and happy and not going too crazy being stuck at home. So before we get started, if you have access to paper and pencil, go grab those so you can draw along as you listen. You can draw some of the things you're hearing about or just draw whatever you feel like. So last week we kind of left off in the middle of a story. It was about different creation characters. So we learned about Gisug, who was the great creator. We heard about Nisgam, who was the sun. We heard about Utsugamu, who is the earth. Then we heard quite a bit about Glooskap. He kind of gets most of the attention in these stories. He's come up in a lot of our stories, but we learned about kind of Glooskap's beginnings in the creation. And then we heard about Nogami, who is an old woman character who is Glooskap's grandmother. And then I believe at the end of where we left off last time that they made a big fire, which went on to be the council fire in future generations. So now we are on to Neteonsum. One day, when Glooskap and Nogami were walking along in the woods, they came upon a young man. This young man looked very strong because he was tall and physically big. He had gray-colored eyes. Glooskap asked the young man his name and how he arrived to the Micmac world. The young man introduced himself. He told Glooskap that his name is Neteonsum and that he is Glooskap's sister's son. In other words, his nephew. That's interesting that he has a nephew when they haven't even introduced his sister yet. But they meet a young man and the young man tells Glooskap, "Hey, I'm your nephew." And sure, why not? He told Glooskap that he is physically strong and that they could all live comfortably. Neteonsum could run after moose, deer, and caribou and bring them down with his bare hands. He was so strong. Neteonsum said that while the east wind was blowing so hard it caused the waters of the ocean to become rough and foamy. This foam got blown to the shore on the sandy beach and finally rested on the tall grass. The tall grass is sweet grass. Its fragrance was sweet. The sweet grass held on to the foam until Nisgam, the sun, was high in the midday sky. Nisgam gave Neteonsum spiritual and physical strength in a human body. Gisug told Glooskap that if he relied on the strength and power of his nephew, he would gain strength and understanding of the world around him. Okay, so Neteonsum told him about how when the east wind blows, it makes the water of the ocean rough and foamy, and then that foam gets blown and lands on some of the tall sweet grass. And then when the sun comes up, they give spiritual and physical strength to Neteonsum and a physical body, because I guess he did not have a human body up till now. Maybe he was like an animal spirit or something. I don't know. Glooskap was so glad for his nephew's arrival to the Micmac world, he called upon the salmon of the rivers and seas to come to shore and give up their lives. The reason for this is that Glooskap, Neteonsum, and Nogami did not want to kill all the animals for their survival. So, in celebration of his nephew's arrival, they all had a feast of fish. They all gave thanks for their existence. They continued to rely on their brothers and sisters of the woods and waters. They relied on each other for their survival. Okay. So that's the end of the Neteonsum section. And that's reminding me that I believe last week in the Nogami section, they asked one of the animals to kill itself for them, but then they had it magically brought back to life. We kind of have that happening again in this. To kind of celebrate Neteonsum, they ask a bunch of the salmon to give up their lives because they don't want to kill the animals. They feel guilty about that. So they ask the fish to kill themselves, I guess, or to give up their lives, sacrifice their lives so that they can have a feast of fish. And then they all give thanks for existence, both the animals and the characters we're learning about. Okay, so I'm laughing because the next character we have has a very intimidating looking name to pronounce. Let's give this a whirl. a whirl. Neganogo nimgo cisco. Sure. Let me try that again and see if it's the same as I said it last time. Neganogo nimgo. Oh, grief. Neganogo. Maybe I'll just give this dude a nickname, but let me try this one more time. Neganogo nimgo cisco. For those of you that are curious on how to pronounce it, it's how it's spelled. Neganogonimgossesgo. Jeez. Okay. Well, hopefully they don't say his name too many times in this story, because I'm going to struggle. While Glooskap was sitting near a fire, Nogami was making clothing out of animal hides, and Neteonsam was in the woods getting food. A woman came to the fire and sat beside Glooskap. She put her arms around Glooskap and asked, "Are you cold, my son?" Glooskap was surprised. He stood up and asked the woman who she is and where did she come from. She explained that she was Glooskap's mother. Her name is Neganogonimgusisko. Glooskap waited until his grandmother and nephew returned to the fire. Then he asked his mother to explain how she arrived to the Micmac world. Neganogonimgusisko said that she was a leaf on a tree which fell to the ground. Morning dew formed on the leaf and glistened while the sun, Niskam, began its journey towards the midday sun. It was at midday when Niskami gave life and a human form to Glooskap's mother. The spirit and strength of Niskam entered into Glooskap's mother. Glooskap's mother said that she brings all the colors of the world to her children. Excuse me. She also brings strength and understanding. Strength to withstand Earth's natural forces and understanding of the Micmac world. Its animals and her children, the Micmac. She told them that they will need understanding and cooperation so they all can live in peace with one another. Okay, so this lady with the long name is Glooskap's mother. So we have more family members of his coming out of the woodworks and revealing themselves. And his mother was a leaf on a tree, and then dew formed on her leaf. And then when the sun came up, it gave her human form as his mother. And she brings strength and understanding to others is what she does. And she does this so that with that understanding, they can all live in peace together. Glooskap was so happy that his mother came into the world. And since she came from a leaf, he called upon his nephew to gather nuts, fruits of the plants, while Nogami prepared a feast. Glooskap gave thanks to Gisulg, Niskam, Utsigmu, Nogami, Nateonsam, and Neganogonomgusisko, his mom. They all had a feast in honor of Glooskap's mother's arrival to the world of Micmacs. The story goes on to say that Glooskap, the man created from the sand of the earth, continued to live with his family for a very long time. He gained spiritual strength by having respect for each member of the family. He listened to his grandmother's wisdom. He relied on his nephew's strength and spiritual power. His mother's love and understanding gave him dignity and respect. Glooskap's brothers and sisters of the wood and waters gave him the will and the food to survive. Glooskap now learned that mutual respect of his family and the world around him was a key ingredient for basic survival. Glooskap's task was to pass this knowledge to his fellow Micmac people so that they too could survive in the Micmac world. This is why Glooskap became a central figure in Micmac storytelling. Okay, so it sounds like he gained a lot of things from his different family members. He gained strength and sustenance from his nephew. From his mother, he gained that understanding and was able to kind of pass those on to the Micmac people, and that's why he features in a lot of their stories. One day, when Glooskap was talking to Nogami, he told her that soon they would leave his mother and nephew. He told her that they should prepare for that occasion. Nogami began to get all the necessary things ready for a long journey to the north. When everyone was sitting around the great fire one evening, Glooskap told his mother and nephew that he and Nogami are going to leave the Micmac world. He said that they will travel in the direction of the north, only to return if the Micmac people were in danger. Glooskap told his mother and nephew to look after the great fire and never to let it go out. After the passing of 7 winters, Elbigneg da Sibungig, 7 sparks will fly from the fire, and when they land on the ground, 7 people will come to life. 7 more sparks will land on the ground, and 7 more people will come into existence. From these sparks will form 7 women and 7 men. They will form 7 families. These 7 families will disperse into 7 different directions from the area of the Great Fire. And that goes back to, I don't know if you remember last week, they were talking about the 7 different directions because they have the 4 that we have, north, south, east, and west. But then they also had the 3 different directions of the creator, the sun, and the earth, or the 3 other directions. So 7 people are created from sparks from the fire, and then 7 more are created, and they start their own little like families. And these different families go in the 7 different directions. Each group will have their own area for their subsistence, so they would not disturb the other groups. He instructed his mother that the smaller groups would share the earth's abundance of resources, which included animals, plants, and fellow humans. Glooskap told his mother that after the passing of 7 winters, each of the 7 groups would return to the place of the Great Fire. At the place of the fire, all the people will dance, sing, and drum in celebration of their continued existence in the Micmac world. Okay, so after 7 winters, all of the groups are going to come back together and around the fire dance and sing and have a big celebration. Glooskap continued by saying that the Great Fire signified the power of the Great Spirit Creator, Gisulg. It also signified the power and strength of the light and heat of Niskam, the sun. The Great Fire held the strength of Utsugamu, the earth. Finally, the fire represented the bolt of lightning which hit the earth from which Glooskap was created. The fire is very sacred to the Micmacs. It is the most powerful spirit on earth. Glooskap told his mother and nephew that it is important for the Micmac to give honor, respect, and thanks to the 7 spiritual elements. The fire signifies the first 4 stages of creation: Gisulg, Niskam, Utsugamu, and Glooskap. Fire plays a significant role in the last 3 stages as it represents the power of the sun, Niskam. In honor of Nogamit's arrival to the Micmac world, Glooskap instructed his mother that 7, 14, and 21 rocks would have to be heated over the Great Fire. These heated rocks will be placed inside a wigwam covered with hides of moose and caribou or with mud. The door must face the direction of the rising sun. There should be room for 7 men to sit comfortably around a pit dug in the center where up to 21 rocks could be placed. 7 alders, 7 wild willows, and 7 beech saplings will be used to make the frame of the lodge. This lodge should be covered with the hides of moose, caribou, deer, or mud. Okay, so earlier in one of the other stories we were reading, I think it was last week, they were talking about the importance of the number 7 in their tribe. And so they did mention a few of these in passing when talking about how important 7, the number 7, was to them. So this is kind of going over that, how they're going to have 7, 14, and 21 heated rocks over the Great Fire. Then they're going to be put in a wigwam, which is made out of 7 of different kinds of trees. 7 men representing the 7 original families will enter into the lodge. They will give thanks and honor to the 7 directions, the 7 stages of creation, and to continue to live in good health. The men will pour water over the rocks, causing steam to rise in the lodge to become very hot. The men will begin to sweat up to the point that it will become almost unbearable. Only those who believe in the spiritual strength will be able to withstand the heat. Then they will all come out of the lodge full of steam and shining like newborn babies. This is the way they will clean their spirits and should honor Nogamit's arrival. In preparation of the sweat, the 7 men will not eat any food for 7 days. They will only drink the water of golden roots and bees' nectar. Okay. So they fast for 7 days. These 7 men fast for 7 days leading up to this ritual. And because they're not eating during that time, they only drink root water and bees' nectar. So I'm guessing honey. Before entering the sweat, the 7 men will burn the sweet grass. They will honor the 7 directions and the 7 stages of creation, but mostly for Netowansom's arrival to the Micmac world. The sweet grass must be lit from the great fire. Glooskap's mother came into the world from the leaf of a tree, so in honor of her arrival, tobacco made from bark and leaves will be smoked. The tobacco will be smoked in pipe made from a branch of a tree and a bowl made from stone. The pipe will be lit from sweet grass, which was lit from the great fire. The tobacco made from bark, leaves, and sweet grass represents Glooskap's grandmother, nephew, and mother. The tobacco, called spibagan, will be smoked, and the smoke will be blown in 7 directions. After honoring Nogami's arrival, the Micmacs shall have a feast or meal. In honor of Netowansom, they will eat fish. The fruits and roots of the trees and plants will be eaten to honor Glooskap's mother. Glooskap's final instruction to his mother told her how to collect and prepare medicine from the barks and roots of 7 different kinds of plants. The 7 plants together make what is called ekjimpisun. It will cure mostly every kind of illness in the Micmac world. The ingredients of this medicine are wikpe, wakwonuminoxe, kastuk, and Coetmonoxe. The end. Okay, so that's the end of all of our creation stories here. So they really leaned into that number 7, huh? They weren't kidding when they said it was very important to them. Everything they do in these rituals is really revolving around the number 7. So they have the 7 men in the sweat lodge with the 7, 14, and 21 hot rocks creating the steam. And then there was some more 7 that they did. They lit a pipe from the sweet grass, which was lit from the great fire. They have a feast. And they mentioned a few times Netowansom. Is that a character we had run into before? I don't recall hearing about them. Okay, so don't know who that person is. But they arrive and they do some stuff in their honor. And then they make magical medicine out of the roots of 7 different plants. And that cures most of the illnesses that they have. Okay, so that is the creation story. Let's move on to our next one. It will go back. Come on. Technical difficulties. Stand by. Okay. So now we have Micmac legend of the shooting star. It's always kind of cool reading these different stories explaining about constellations and stars and stuff like that. Oh, and this is a short one. Okay. Yeah, one I remember from some of the previous stories we've read is how the constellations in the Milky Way came to being, how it was a magical like spirit dog that got into someone's basement and stole a bunch of their cornmeal, and then while being chased, dropped some of it out of their mouth and it scattered across the sky, making the Milky Way. So there's always some pretty cool stories to explain the constellations. So let's read about the shooting star. And again, this is a very short one. In the land of Glooskap, many years ago, there lived 2 sisters who loved to watch the stars. One day, when they were walking in the forest, they became lost, and in the evening, they watched the stars as always. In 2 bright stars, one sister saw an eagle, and the other sister saw a hawk. These birds carried them up into heaven. They were very lonesome, for they were away from their own people, and they prayed to Glooskap to have them return to their homes. He said, "If I do this, you must not look back once we start on our journey." But the younger sister could not resist looking back to see if her older sister was following. As she did, she was immediately turned to flame. You can see her today. Look for a shooting star. It is the younger sister, still trying to come back to her people in the old land of Glooskap. The end. Told you it was a short one. So this one, we have two sisters who are watching the stars, and they see these two stars, and one of them thinks that it's an eagle. The other one says it's a hawk. And then the birds that they thought these stars were came and carried them up into the heavens. And they got lonely because they were away from all of their people. And so they asked Glooskap to help them return, and he said, okay, sure, but once we start, don't look back. That's a common theme in a lot of stories. So the one sister looks back to see if her sister's behind her, and when she does, she turns into flame. And so the shooting star you see is this younger sister looking back on her way trying to get home. So that's kind of a dark ending. She bursts into flames because she looked back. All right. I think pretty much any time in these stories when someone's given a specific instruction of what not to do, they're going to end up doing it in the story. So pay attention if we have any instructions in these stories of do not do this specific thing, they're probably going to end up doing it. Okay, so now we have Micmac legend of the wild goose. Wonder if it's going to talk about a wild goose chase at all. Oh, this is another short one. Yeah, we had a really long one with that creation story, so now they're making up for it with a bunch of short ones. When birds migrated to the south in the long, long ago, they came and left by themselves. Many of the little ones were killed by storms. This caused great sorrow to Glooskap, the great god of the Micmac. He asked the wild goose, the largest bird, and the last one to leave the north each fall, to care for all of the smaller ones. The wild goose called all the little birds together and told them of Glooskap's wonderful plan. They agreed that the wild goose would lead them in their long flight to the south, shelter them in their faraway homes, be with them during their journey back, and protect them while they were in the north during the summer season. Ever since the time of Glooskap, the wild goose has been the guide and protector of all the small birds that come to our country each year. The end. Okay, so basically, I don't know enough about birds' migrating patterns to know whether geese are the first ones to migrate. I'm not sure. I'm wondering if that's what this is explaining. But it's saying that in the beginning, when the birds would travel during their migration, they would travel by themselves. And the little ones would often get killed by storms on the way. And this made Glooskap really upset and sad. And so he asked Wild Goose, who was the largest of them, to kind of guide them and protect them while they were out on their journey. And he does. The end. Okay. Told you, another short one. All right. Next up, we have Micmac women who married star husbands. And you know what? Just that title is sounding a little familiar, so I wonder if we've already had a story similar to it. A lot of the time we'll read stories and realize, oh, this is just a retelling that's slightly different from a story we already heard. So this one might be that. We'll see. It sounds a little familiar to me. And this one is not short, but I think we have time to finish it in this video. In the morning, when the men have gone out to hunt, so this is Micmac women who married star husbands. In the morning, when the men have gone out to hunt, these two women just walk off deeper into the forest and disappear from that camp. They are happy, these two women. They are Skusikwak, weasel women, and their skins are very white, like every weasel person's fur is in the wintertime. And these two Skusikwak are sisters. Older sister has power. She takes them deep into the forest, and there she builds them a shelter camp. Younger sister makes a small fire. Okay, so we meet these two women, and when the men go out to hunt, these two go deep into the forest, and they're happy. They're weasel women. They have pretty white fur, and the older one has power and takes them deep into the forest and builds them a shelter, and the younger sister makes them a fire. Now it is night. The sun has gone beneath the earth, and those two sisters, those two weasels, are lying there looking up at the stars. Older sister says to younger sister, "Those are persons up in the sky world. Look at their eyes shining up there." Younger sister says, "Which one would you like to have for your husband, lying with you in the morning? One with big eyes or one with little eyes?" Older sister says, "I choose that one there, the shiniest and the brightest." Younger sister says, "Oh, that one. That one is ugly." "So," says older sister, "so then, which one would you have?" "I will have that little star there, the little red one." And then these two weasel women fall asleep looking toward the east where their two stars are hunting across the night. Now it is morning. Younger sister stretches under her furs. She is waking up. Her foot touches something. "Be careful," cries a little squeaking voice. "You have upset the bark dish of nepijaquati, the medicine for my eyes." Younger sister sits up. Who has spoken? By her side is a little small old man with a wrinkled face and sore red eyes. It is that small red star person. She has called him to be her husband by talking in the night. She has called the star with sore eyes. Okay, so the night before they're looking at the stars and they say, "Oh, they look like eyes." And so the older one says, "Okay, well, if I had to pick one for my husband, it would be that one that's the biggest and the shiniest." And then the younger sister says, "Oh, I would take that small red star." And then when they wake up the next morning, the younger sister wakes up and there is a small man with red sore eyes next to her. And by wishing the red star to be her husband the night before, he has come down in human form and is lying next to her. Now older sister begins to wake up. She moves a little under her sleeping robes. "Watch out, woman," says a man's voice. It is a deep, strong voice. "You have upset the bark dish with my sikwan, my red ochre." Older sister rolls over and sits up. Lying there next to her is a man, a tall man, a strong man. His face is painted with red ochre. It is her star husband whom she has called to her by talking in the night. She has called the star with shining eyes. So these two weasel women are caught again, and they must be the wives of stars. That's kind of bad luck. It sounds like they don't really want to be married to stars, and just by talking about it in conjecture, they are. They wished it into being, and they didn't realize that's what they were doing. So now they are the wives of stars in human form. "I have nothing to give you to eat," says older sister. "We will not eat until we have come home from hunting," says her husband. "You can gather wood and tend the fire and prepare for our return. But there is one thing you must not do." Like we were talking in the other story, I bet they're going to do that exact thing. Let's find out what it is. "Ah," says younger sister's husband, the star with sore eyes. "There is one thing you must not do. You must not move that flat rock which lies before the wigwam. You must not move it. You must not lift it." "Very well," says older sister. "We will cook for you on your return." Now many days go by. The weasel women go out to look for sipink, the ground nuts, wild potatoes. Oh, so they call potatoes ground nuts. That's interesting. They are digging them up. They are going to cook them, and younger sister is talking again. "I wonder what is under the flat stone." "You leave that flat stone alone," says older sister. But younger sister keeps talking about it, and soon she has talked herself right up to it, and soon she has talked her hands right on it, and then she is lifting it up. She lifts up the stone and looks under it. "What is there?" asks older sister. Younger sister screams. "Where are we?" shrieks younger sister. "Where are we, my older sister?" Older sister pushes her aside and looks under the stone, looks to see what is making her little weasel sister yell so, and she sees. They are in the world above the sky. They are standing on top of the sky. The stone is covering a hole in it, and through this hole she can see down, down, down to the earth below, to the forest, to the little shelter camp she built the night the two of them lay talking together about the eyes of stars. Okay, so they did the thing that they were told not to do. They lift up the stone, and the younger sister just starts freaking out and screaming. And so the older sister goes to look, And as it turns out, they're not where they thought they were. They thought they were on the earth and that the star husbands had come down to them. But it sounds like the star husbands actually transported them up to where they are, because when they lift up the stone, there's a hole looking down into the earth where they used to be. And it shows that they're really high up, high above where they used to live. Older sister bursts into tears. Younger sister bursts into tears. These two weasel women weep until their eyes are red with crying. Way out in the forest of the world above the sky, the star husbands are hunting, and they begin to know something, feeling wrong. They begin to feel their wives crying. We had better go back, says the star husband with shining eyes. They must have lifted the stone, says the star with sore eyes. Listen to them crying. It is almost evening when those star persons come out of the forest. Their weasel wives are trying to cook, trying to pretend that nothing has happened. But star persons have power, and they know. What has troubled you today? They are asking their wives. What have you been crying about? Nothing is wrong, says younger sister. We have not been crying. Ah, says the husband of older sister. I think you have been looking through the hole in the sky. I think you have been lifting the stone and looking down at your world, and I think that you are lonely and want to return to it. Older sister looks up at her star husband. She cannot say anything. She looks at him, and tears start to come out of her eyes. Very well, he says to her. You may go back to the earth world. The old star with sore eyes tells them, Tonight, weasel women, you must sleep close together. You must keep your fur robes over your heads, and in the morning, when the sun comes from beneath the earth, you must lie very still. Do not take the robes from over your heads. Do not open your eyes. First, you will hear the chickadee calling. Keep your eyes shut. Next, you will hear apple packmidge, red squirrel person. You will hear him singing. Do not open your eyes. After a long time, you will hear atutwedge, striped squirrel. He will sing, and then you may open your eyes. If you do as we have told you, says the tall star husband, you will find yourselves back in your shelter camp, the place you were lying the night you invited us to come and be your husbands. Okay, so they've been given very specific instructions on how to get back. And also very specific instructions of what not to do. So I'm a little worried that that trope we've had in all these stories of don't do this thing and then they do it. We'll see. We'll see if they get back to their world and if they follow these instructions. So these two weasel women lie down together and cover their heads with sleeping robes. The night passes, and in the morning they hear the chickadee. Younger sister, always impatient, wants to leap up, but older sister forces her to lie still. Wait until we hear atutwedge, she says. After a long while, they hear something singing. What is it? It is apple-packmidge, red squirrel. And that foolish younger sister, that silly weasel woman, she jumps at the noise and throws off the covers, and then she begins to squeal. Where are we, my older sister? Older sister sighs and opens her eyes. The sun has come from beneath the earth, and these weasel women are back in their own world, but they have opened their eyes too soon on the way down, and now they are stuck in the top of a tall, tall pine tree. There are no branches in this tree except a few at the very top, and these two women cannot get down. The end. Ugh, I was worried that they weren't going to follow the instructions. So they were supposed to wait for the chickadees to sing, the red squirrel to sing, and then the striped squirrel. When they heard the striped squirrel sing is when they were supposed to finally open their eyes. But when they hear the second one, the red squirrel sing, the younger sister is impatient and she jumps up and then she starts screaming just like she did when she looked under the rock. She's like, where are we? Where are we? And so the older sister sighs. I don't know. I guess she's devoted to her sister and doesn't just abandon her. So even though she knew it was too early to open her eyes, she sighs and opens her eyes. And they see that they're at the top of a really tall pine tree and there's not big enough branches to be able to climb down. So because they opened their eyes early, they were in their world. They were on their way down to where they were, but they opened their eyes early. So now they're stuck at the top of a tree that they can't get down. And that's how the story ends. So that was an entertaining one. I really liked that one. So the stories we read today, we read the second half of that creation myth of the different characters with Glooskap and his nephew and his mother. And then we had the shooting star, which was the girl who, when going back to her world, looked back and turned into fire. Then we had the wild goose leading the different birds in their migration so none of them die. And then we had the Micmac women who married star husbands, the ones we just read. Which one did you guys like best? I think I probably liked that last one the best. It was kind of exciting and entertaining. It had lots of stuff going on. Okay, so we'll leave off there for today, but next week we'll start off with Muin, the bear's child. And it looks like we got some entertaining ones coming up. Glooskap's going to make an appearance again, it looks like. So we'll pick up there next week. In the meantime, I hope you guys stay well, happy, and healthy. And tune in next week for another one of these. Bye, guys.